It's really nice to be here. Let's talk about all this new television stuff, but let me just find out, how many of you are Netflix subscribers? How many of you have Amazon Prime Video? Is there anybody who has gotten HBO over the top, the new HBO Now? I've been spending the last 15 years tracking all the population as they go online, and we discovered something very interesting that I never knew. We discovered that one of the most interesting audiences to follow are college students who just graduate. And when college students graduate, they get their first apartments. And that's when they have to decide which things they grew up with they're now willing to pay for, and which things they're not. And that's where 15 years ago we saw, when they were getting their first apartments, they weren't getting landline telephones. And it was pretty clear what was happening to landline phones, and it has. That's where 12 years ago we saw they weren't subscribing to the printed newspaper. And it was pretty clear what would happen. No matter where you live, the printed newspaper has gotten thinner, and in some communities it's disappeared online. 3 years ago, we saw they weren't getting cable and satellite television. And in the last 9 months, we've seen they weren't getting television sets at all. But this is not lack of interest in television. Interest in television is greater than it's ever been before. They just want to watch on their iPads, their smartphones, their computers. Now, the cable companies, getting very nervous at this, decided to put together a program they called Television Everywhere. And Television Everywhere said to their audience, but especially younger people, okay, we get it. You want to watch television on your iPad, your computer, your phone? Great. You can watch it anywhere you want once you authenticate to us that you're a cable subscriber spending $85 a month. But one of the very reasons people are going to these other devices is so they don't have to spend $85 a month. Because, you know, I used to say when I was talking about the music business, the business model of the music business is nothing short of extortion. The music business used to say to you, you want 2 songs, you have to spend $15 on a CD. The cable companies have said to you for years, you want 5 channels, you have to spend $65 for 100 channels. That's now all changing. That's changing with Netflix and HBO and Amazon, all of which, and I don't know if you know this terminology or not, and I try never to use jargon, all of whom have gone over the top, what's called OTT services. You know that until now, your television signals came from an antenna on your roof, and depending on where you live and how good the signal is and whether your neighborhood has restrictions, you can still get lots of great channels for free by putting an antenna on your roof, or cable or satellite. Cable and satellite were considered through-the-door services because they came into your house with a wire. Over the top, the best known over the top is Netflix, which you get through the internet, is sort of thought of coming over your door directly to you. And as you know, you can buy Netflix all by itself. You don't have to have cable or satellite. And HBO, historically, how many of you are HBO subscribers? You've had to be a cable or satellite subscriber to go to HBO. But HBO finally decided last October they were going to go over the top as well, because it drives HBO crazy that Netflix has more subscribers than they do. HBO is still far more profitable, but HBO is looking to its future tied to cable, which is shrinking, and Netflix's future tied to broadband, which is growing. So HBO didn't want to lose all those people who didn't want cable and has gone over the top. Now we are able to put our own television packages together. Eventually, you will be able to choose from 100 different channels, paying fees of maybe 30 cents a month if you want the Weather Channel. Sadly, for the Weather Channel, almost nobody watches the Weather Channel as a TV channel, because if you want to know the weather, you know where you go, and it's usually not to television. But you'll be able to get packages from the Weather Channel at 30 cents up to Netflix at $9 a month. HBO, they now call the HBO over-the-top service, is called HBO Now. That's $15 a month. You'll be able to put your own packages together. So right now, the average cable bill is $85. Right now, you can get Netflix for $9. You can get HBO for $15. You can get the broadcast networks for another $10 to $15. You can begin to put a package together. How many of you are Amazon Prime members? If you are Amazon Prime members, I think I'm safe in saying every one of you pay $79. It's just gone to $99. The rise to $99 cost them nothing. Everybody stayed. But I would argue you are all Amazon Prime members because of the unlimited second-day shipping, which sort of means, and a lot of people didn't even notice when they became Prime members 2, 3, 4 years ago, that somehow, inexplicably, everybody joined Amazon Prime for the shipping. Inexplicably, they threw in thousands of hours of television and video. And I would argue that that's sort of free, but that's an over-the-top service. But now everybody is following the HBO game plan. And those who've paid attention, and I'm sure that's all of you, HBO started in the mid-70s as a channel that showed movies faster than they were normally shown on television. A very short window for movies. And as you know well, those movies were also uncut. They had all the sex and violence and language and drug use of the original movie, and they were uninterrupted. No commercials. And HBO was successful as a movie service with movies that were seen more recently from the theater. But HBO didn't become a global phenomenon. Now when I go to international film festivals and the HBO logo comes up, people start applauding. That's how much they love HBO. HBO didn't become an international phenomenon until they created their own original programming just for HBO. And in the beginning, HBO's original programming wasn't very good in the early 90s. For example, the fact that they could show things on HBO that you couldn't see on network. You would see in lots of their original programs, women would rip their top off for no reason other than they could show you naked breasts on HBO that they couldn't show you anywhere else. It was and they would use lots of 4-letter words just to remind you. Their slogan, as everybody knows, is it's not television, it's HBO. And originally, high-quality movie producers, television producers didn't want to work with HBO. They wanted to work with the broadcast networks because far more people would see it. But then HBO figured out how to make great programming. They really hit their stride about 15 years ago with Sopranos, Sex and the City, 6 Feet Under, and now producers come to HBO wanting to work for them. And of course, today, Game of Thrones, which breaks the internet every time they premiere a new episode. When HBO went over the top with HBO Now, they announced it in October, but they didn't actually make it available till the beginning of April. They waited for the first episode of the new season of Game of Thrones. And now HBO is this service that people watch and buy because of the original programming, and they sometimes watch the movies, but the movies have become incidental. Netflix started the same way, except Netflix wasn't a cable channel. How many of you were Netflix red envelope customers? You paid $17.90, or you had various rates depending on, paid as much as $17.95. At one point, Netflix was the second biggest customer of the U.S. Postal Service. And the Postal Service is suffering because Netflix, anybody still a red envelope customer? Guy who works for me is too. They still will ship DVDs to your house. But 3 years ago, they cut the company in half. They raised their prices. They lost 1 million customers, 90% of their stock value. They looked like they had just jumped over a cliff and were going to die. But they came back with the biggest comeback story imaginable. Their stock is now up 800%. It's one of the first stocks to go above $600. But Netflix did well as a streaming service when it had lots of television and film. But it too didn't become a major phenomenon until it went into original programming. Their first original program didn't do very well. Lilyhammer with Steve Van Zandt from The Sopranos, and also Steve Van Zandt. Anyone else know where Steve Van Zandt's from? He's an actor, he was an actor on The Sopranos, and also a member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. Pretty interesting combination. That didn't do well. Their second original show was House of Cards. And House of Cards, incidentally, really points out how useful data has become in these movie services, because before they spent $100 million to create House of Cards, they had research that showed that Kevin Spacey was one of the most popular actors on Netflix for all of his Usual Suspects and American Beauty. They had research that showed that David Fincher was one of the most popular directors. Fincher had done Seven and The Social Network and the American Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And they also showed that the British drama House of Cards was very popular as well. Anyone seen the British version? I haven't. But it did well on Netflix. So using all that data, they put $100 million into getting the rights of House of Cards, getting Fincher to direct, Spacey to star, and I don't have to tell you, it's in its third season, how it transformed Netflix. Netflix then did Orange is the New Black, equally popular, now in its second season, and they're producing an enormous amount of original programming because they see their future is not in the old television or film, the future is in original. But the old television and film is still popular. 2 years ago, AMC was airing the last 5 episodes of Breaking Bad. And I think whether you watch Breaking Bad, how many really big Breaking Bad fans? Whether you're a big fan or not, you know how immensely popular that was. What turns out, Breaking Bad, when it premiered on AMC, was not very successful. It did all right. So a lot of people never watched the first 2 or 3 seasons, and then it became this huge hit, and everybody was hearing all the hype about how great Breaking Bad was. Our work shows that in the month before they aired the 5 final episodes on AMC, 2 million people went to Netflix and binged 50 episodes in a month so they could see all the old episodes so they could watch the last 5 live. Netflix now serves that purpose. If you pick up a show in the 3rd season and you like it, you go back to Netflix and watch the first 2 seasons. So Netflix still does well with the old stuff. And then Amazon, as I mentioned, sort of free, not literally free because you have to buy the shipping, but people view the video as free. Amazon had all this old television and film, and people liked it because it was sort of free. But then Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, decides he doesn't just want old content. He too, seeing how HBO was transformed by original content, how Netflix was transformed by original content, Amazon starts to create original content. And Jeff Bezos has much deeper pockets than Rupert Murdoch. Jeff Bezos, I use this as a line, but I mean it, not literally, but almost. Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post out of the spare change in his pocket. It took 1% of his wealth to buy. So he's now putting enormous amounts of money into original Amazon programming. Some of you, anybody seen Transparent on Amazon? Transparent, starring Jeffrey Tambor as a transgender, just won a Golden Globe Award, an original series. Amazon's doing something really original. They're making pilots, and then they let the viewers vote on which pilots should be made into television series. I watched one, I can't even remember the name, it's really interesting. I watched one that they decided to make into a series, they're making it now, but it was about if Germany and Japan had won the war and divided the United States, and west of the Mississippi it was controlled by Japan, and east of the Mississippi it was controlled by Nazi Germany. It was really sort of interesting, but the Amazon lets you vote on which shows, which pilots should be made into series. Amazon now has made a deal with a guy who never makes television to make television for Amazon, Woody Allen. Woody Allen's going to make original television programs for Amazon, and Amazon is going to make movies for the movie theater that will be shown on Amazon 30 days after they're in the theater. So these services are beginning to change everything. What's happening with all this over-the-top, on-demand services is and pardon the crude word, nobody watches crap anymore. Now what I really mean is nobody watches what is crap to them, because the stuff you watch may be Honey Boo Boo and Duck Dynasty, the stuff you watch may be Downton Abbey, no judgments there at all. But it means we only watch the stuff we want to watch. This television network viewing that I grew up with, that NBC on Thursday nights would put The Cosby Show at 8 o'clock, Cheers at 9 o'clock, and some new show at 8:30 because you were too lazy to change the channel. Those things are all gone. I can tell, for many of us, myself included, I still know what nights my favorite shows are on, but I don't even know what time my favorite shows are on because they're recorded automatically, or if you stream them, there is no time. Although interestingly, we've seen with Game of Thrones and House of Cards, even though they're streamed, which means you don't have to watch them when they first are available, people do watch them the first minute they're available because first they're afraid social media will spoil what happens, and if they don't see them immediately, and second, they want to share what we used to call in the 80s water cooler shows, that after watching them at home at night, everybody would talk about them the next day at the water cooler. The water cooler's long gone, but social media has become the water cooler. So people still watch Game of Thrones the first moment it's available. They watch House of Cards as quickly as it's available. But the world of television is changing. We're seeing fewer and fewer people watch television live. Most of us are watching delayed or stream. And even the way in my household, the way and I'm sure this is true of many of you, the way we watch 60 Minutes, we start watching 60 Minutes at 20 minutes after 7, so it still finishes at 8. We just don't have to watch all the commercials. That's not live. That's a whole different way of watching this stuff on our schedules the way we want to watch it. And the other thing about over the top is the services I've mentioned that have gone over the top already, Netflix, Amazon, HBO Now, they're all non-commercial. But that doesn't mean that over the top is non-commercial. All of the commercial channels are going to go over the top as well. CBS is already over the top. So over the top doesn't mean no commercials. It simply means a new way of getting television where you pick and choose what you want. I think what you're going to see in the next 6 months is a website. Apple's getting into this business. AT&T's getting into this business. You're going to go to a website that's customized to you. You're going to see a list of 100 channels with their prices. As I said, the Weather Channel may be 30 cents a month, and Netflix is $9. You're going to click or unclick the channels you want. You can do that every week if you want, and add or subtract channels, and it will all be done effortlessly, and you'll pay Apple or AT&T or somebody else $3 a month, and they will pay all of these services, so you don't have to write 8 checks, 9 checks. I think you'll happily pay $3 to let somebody do all the billing and to be able to, with just a click, add or subtract a service, and you're going to see that in the next couple of months. So that's my vision of the future of television. Television where you pick and choose what you want, where you watch most things on demand. The only television people are really watching live today would be what? Sports, and more specifically, NFL football. And that's why the NFL can command so much money from the broadcast networks. Last season, CBS went to the NFL. The NFL has, of course, the NFL licensed games to broadcasters, but the NFL also has the NFL.com and the NFL channel on cable. CBS said, we want you to take 8 games off of the NFL channel, sell them to us. And the NFL's in this amazing position. Do we make hundreds of millions of dollars by putting them on our own channel and selling advertising? Or these guys at the networks will pay us hundreds of millions and then another bunch of millions if we'll give them to them? So the NFL actually took 8 games off of the NFL channel, sold them to CBS for hundreds of millions of dollars. CBS moved their most popular sitcom, The Big Bang, from Thursday to Monday so they could have Thursday night football. When the season ended, they moved Big Bang back to Thursday, and they just announced they're doing the same thing next season. They're buying the same 8. Big Bang will start in September on Monday. We'll move at the end of the season. The NFL is just a cash machine. If you go to their headquarters and open a drawer, billion-dollar bills fall out. No one, because it's the only programming that attracts large audiences live. Even the Oscars, the most popular award show, and it's losing a lot of its popularity, out of a country of 330 million people, attracted 29 million people to the Oscars. The Super Bowl this year, 118 million people. So the NFL, the only thing that can really thrive in traditional television. So that's a little bit of an overview of the world of television as we see it.